What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as Ridemyavatar, and they finally did it. They've introduced mulligans and sideboards into this game. Well, they're testing it for the Digifest, and I'm excited, and hopefully you are too. And we'll go over it as we are taking care of all these things. So let's dive right in and let's talk about mulligans followed by the sideboards. So let's get into it. Modified game rules will be tested for the main events as follows. For store events, please confirm that with the store that following the rules will be used. So mulligans, first off, are after players have placed their security, drawn their starting hand, review their hand, mulligan it to mulligan, place all cards from your hand to the bottom of your deck, then shuffle your deck. Do not replace your security cards. Draw 5 new cards from the top of your deck. Subsequently, mulligans are not permitted. So basically, what we're going to be doing is cutting, and I'll show you a representation of what mulligans are. We'll just go like that, bottom that, and then just representing cuts that our opponent is doing. Then we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then let's get that opening beautiful hand here. So let's see. We have a very unplayable hand in all honesty, but we're going to lose out on 2 of our 3 ties. We're going to lose out on 1 of our Judgment of the Blades, Agumon, and then finally Rise Greymon. So if we mulligan this back, these 5 cards, just like this, we're going to go. Or if people want, you can possibly stack it. I do not know fully if that's legal, but you can go like that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is now your new opening hand, and let's see how playable it is. Actually became a very playable hand. We're just missing out on the Jessamon. So let's see, would we have Jessamon coming in the next couple turns would be the question. See, now even though this became a super playable hand, you're still going to be banking on trying to get to your combo pieces, and still I didn't see a Jessamon. That doesn't instantly mean I have unbricked for the game. You still have a high probability of bricking. And let's even look. Here is 1 Jessamon in security, and it's at the bottom of it. So by the time we ever got to see the Jessamon, we would have probably lost. Just even though you have the high probability of getting a better hand, doesn't mean always that you're going to instantly win. It also means just a lot more fair when your opponent mulligans. You might have a closer game match. Doesn't instantly mean wins happen when you mulligan. So keep that in mind, that a lot of decks you could just mulligan all you want, but it doesn't mean you're going to always have the end result you need. So just keep that in mind, that it's a possibility you're going to have a good hand and then you're going to have a bad hand. You got to make the calls on what you're going to lose out and what's going to be beneficial to not lose out. So let's go into the side decks. So let's talk about side decks. Players will be permitted to bring their main deck of 50 cards and a side deck up to 10 cards, which really does mean that we have a very functional 10 card side deck, which could really make or break player skills. So side decks may include main deck and Digi-Egg cards. Until we get better Digi-Egg cards that might affect more, I don't think Digi-Egg cards might be the best call in these situations. The limit number on copies of cards with the same card numbers that are included apply to the total number of cards in your deck and side. If the rules or effects change the limit on the copy of cards that can be included, the limit applies to the total in both deck and side. So basically, you can only have 4 copies of a number between both deck and side. So it's not bad. The contents of the side deck are considered a secret and should not be shown to the opponent. Both players should count out their side decks in view of the opponent to confirm how many cards are in their side deck at the start of each match. Your deck may be returned to a deck box for safekeeping, which must be kept on the table in view of both players. So basically, they're trying to say, instead of now hide your sideboard off the table and put it back in your backpack, you gotta keep it on the table at least. I get it. They're trying to prevent the construction of cheating, especially because now, depending on cheaters' extremeness, they could have multiple deck boxes, the same exact ones, with different sideboards, and depending on the matchups, they could pull it out of their backpack and it'll be a better version to face the deck they have. So, I mean, if I can think of this, some cheater can too. So after the end of each game in a match, players may choose to swap cards into their deck from their side. The same number of cards must be swapped in each deck, and the quantity of both decks must remain the same before and after siding. Basically, you can't go like, make my deck a 60-card deck. That's all it's pretty much saying. Please keep the time between games under 3 minutes. All preparation for the next game and exchange of cards between main deck and side deck must be carried out within 3 minutes. So you can't... This is what's going to really cost a lot of time and cause a lot of issues, because these 3-minute rules, especially if you're playing against a player that is intentionally slow playing, they'll eat up the 3 minutes intentionally. So keep that in mind. If you think that your opponent is slow playing, really do call them out. Really do it, because it's the only way you're going to get timely responses. Players may be penalized if a judge determines them to be wasting time between games. So yeah, if you're using the full 3 minutes too much, yeah, there's an issue. Before the start of each game, if a player has cited they should present it to their opponents face down. The number of cards in the side deck is public information, but a player is not required to reveal how many cards they swapped in between games. So basically, if you wanted to, you could take your whole side deck, put it into your deck, shuffle, 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 then take out cards that you're not going to be using for that matchup. Now it keeps it very random, and now your opponent won't know how many cards you sided in and out. That's usually the best way of doing it, in my opinion, because now your opponent doesn't know if you just added a full new 10-card deck, and now you're playing a full different strategy. That's probably what I'll do, even if I just have spicy one-of texts or option texts that are just better for the matchup. It just helps out. Players are not permitted to review their side deck content during a game. So yeah, that becomes very interesting. If somebody was going to look through the side deck, they can remember how many. If they don't remember how many cards they teched out of a certain card, it becomes very interesting. So at the end of the match, players must return their decks and side to their original state. If a player receives a game loss penalty prior to the start of the first game, players are not allowed to switch out cards from their side deck before the start of the game. So if you revive late, you're just playing game one naturally. Most card games are like that, so there's nothing really too crazy about that. But let's go over some possible silver bullets you might be wanting to think about. So majorly, yes, you want to talk like Chumons. Your opponent can't gain memory except for Tamers. This will help out against certain matchups that you would normally be struggling in, but you couldn't fit enough in. So it really does help to allow you to shut down decks that might help you out, be a little more struggling for you. Like Sayokamon, the same thing. Like, if you wanted to, you can, if you're facing green and you know it's going to be a heavy green format, you can have Sayokamon. Your opponent can't reduce Digimon costs. So really comes down to this really weird thing that Madoke Betamon is usually the go-to main deck card, because even though green might be a little more problem for you, there was just no way of fitting both of these at the same time, and selective answers was really tough. But now you can just side out the Madoke Betamon and then put in Sayokamon to counteract the green matchup, making it more favorable in your end. It's just how that'll work out. Same thing, Terriermon, Gazimon, both memory tamers, and it just really does help out. You know, Gasomon is really good for can't reduce, helps slow down green matchups that might be overpowering for you. Cutemon, the same thing, shutting down that green matchup. And if your opponent is playing heavy tamer like all turns, when your Digimon with a tamer and its Digi-Evolution is deleted, you may play a tamer from your trash without paying its memory cost. This card becomes a really good side deck card. Nemon is very great for side deck, but he's not good for the main deck, because only if your Digimon are getting deleted constantly, this card is really good. But, you know, play a tamer with an inheritable effect from your hand without paying its memory cost. Just, he's a good card, but he was just not as beneficial as Bokomon. But now, if you're dealing with heavy removal and your Digimon are dying constantly, now you can at least play Nemon out of the side deck and then have a way of alleviating the stress. I mean, most decks will probably try to side in Mechanorimons, or what, even in black. Certain black matchups was really tough, because if the removal was targeting and stuff like that, you couldn't really tech in enough decoys without hurting your normal strategy, because not every deck sits there and just targets everything just to destroy. But now you can add decoy blockers into your black pool, and now it might help out against the matchups you were struggling against. You know, I mean, even in Kakumon, being able to attack into Digimon might help you out. I mean, Craniumon, really good tech cards. I mean, Puppetmon, being able to lock stuff down. Magna Dromon, being able to recovery if you're playing a long game. Mastamons coming in just to remove security against heavy security option decks. I mean, even Ridemyavatar, who is only good against yellow, can be a very powerful sideboard tech because now he has extra security check and he can't be reduced this Digimon's DP. So now green's overarching issue that you didn't have Nidhogg or something like that, now you can swap out your top end, put Ridemyavatar and have Nidhogg in. Now you have a double answer to your opponent's yellow theme that they're trying to DP or minus you. Well, Ridemyavatar will come in and just can't be reduced. So it's a lot of information like this. And then like Tactimon is really good to remove rookies. Heavy Rookie Rush style games. Now this can go against Commandramons or Rookie Rush just very easily and just keep popping and popping and wiping boards. So like keep that in mind. Then you have like Omnimon himself here. He was such a very powerful card, but he just became more of a side niche that I need an answer to. I need to answer this wide board. Well, now if you're facing Diaboromon, which is annoying the daylights out of you, you can slam down this Omnimon, pop goes the Weasel. Unless they have the Armageddonmon, you just wipe out their whole board and now they're screwed. I mean, if you're facing heavy blocker prevention, you can use Millenniumon to get rid of the Craniumons or big boss monsters back to the bottom of the deck. So it's really comes down to your tech preferences here. Like really good solid option cards like Program, Emergency Halt, opponent can't use options. I mean, Takumi, Abia being able to slow down rookies. Even Izzy Joe becoming more sideboard tech if you wanted to. I mean, Sora, Mimi, really good sideboard tech. If your opponent doesn't play level 4s or lower in their deck, you gain 2 memory constantly. So that's going to punish them. Options are always great for removal, preventions, and stuff like that. Even Breath of the God in black is huge because now you can give reboot and this Digimon cannot be reduced or returned to its owner's hand or deck. And its security, your opponent can't attack the player for the turn. So if this pops off, you could win the game just by a crackback. So that's really huge information that you might have to take in. And what I really think is very interesting, let's take Commandramon here. This is a very optimal idealism of, let's say we're playing this basic deck, but now with a sideboard, we want to switch from this to this. Now you have more removal options and your opponent's now going to have to guess what deck you're playing. You now take 8 cards, put it into your deck. Now your deck is now a completely different playstyle and it's still functioning in similar ways, but now you have a use for Magnadramon, being able to play the Starmons, with Spiral Masquerade being another great option tech. So now, because they see you play Commandramon, they want to tech in Mechanorimons, blockers for days. Now you have ways of getting around the Mechanoris, or you have a way of getting around all these blockers they're trying to build up wide on you, and then try to take you out. Now, that's just me. I think being able to swap in between 10 cards and just completely go into a new strategy is huge in this game. Or you just play a bunch of silver bullets that you need to. It's going to really test the real deck building ability of the player base. You're going to see how sideboarding is going to affect. I think without saying much more, I don't know how sideboard's going to really change up everything, but it could really cause some very interesting dynamics and different play styles and questionability of what's going to go on. So guys, let me know how you feel about the Mulligans and how you feel about like the sideboard. Let me know down in the comments and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace!